Hello, I'm Ray Bradshaw and this is a Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Monday the 9th of February. And we've had some late drama this weekend.
It's Chinexi who scores! Celtic have turned this tie around and that low shot from Chinexi goes right through John McCracken.
Late goals and controversy as Celtic edge past Dundee, and there was Derby Day drama elsewhere this weekend.
Protection in by Chris Kane, brilliantly finished by Dunfermline, and Dunfermline are heading to the last day of the Scottish Cup. Dunfermline Athletic 2, Celtic Hearts 0.
Falkirk and Dunfermline conquer local rivals to make the next round, and speaking of that, we look at the mouth-watering quarter-final ties we've got in store.
Rangers at home against
number 2.
It is Celtic, an Old Firm derby in the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup.
We'll fill you in on all the Scottish Cup action.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Yes, hello, I'm very happy because my team got through, and we've got two guests today. One of them will be happy, and the other one will talk about how brave his team was. First up, we've got Gordon Waddell, the Scottish football writer, Falkirk fan. Gordon, you were working last night. I guess you're happy Falkirk squeezed through?
A kind of 50-50 split between happy and relieved, I would say, especially after Craig's big intro on TV to the game last night, when I felt as if we were about to go to war rather than play a football game. But it was, I think any Falkirk fan will tell you that just getting over the line last night was all that mattered. Which was just as well because the football wasn't great.
Yeah, it was not. We're also joined, like Gordon alluded to there, by Craig Telfer, the presenter of A View from the Terrace, Stenhousemuir fan, essentially the new Gerard Butler after that opening montage last night. Craig, sum it up for us. How was it?
Yeah, it was a testing evening. I think it was what I expected from Stenhousemuir and from Falkirk. I thought that Stenhousemuir would be very compact, very structured, very disciplined, play in a way that really gave Falkirk a lot of the ball, and they had to be very deliberate and very precise with what they did with it. And I don't necessarily think they were. However, when Brad Spencer scored the goal, just the calibre of the goal, the timing of the goal, it just felt as though Stenhousemuir didn't have anywhere to go from that point in, and it felt inevitable that Falkirk would go on and win. But as you've said, Ray, I'm very proud of the players' effort. I think they gave a good account of themselves. Nicky Jamieson in particular was a standout at the centre-back. So just pleased we made it as far in the competition, hopefully made a wee bit of money from it, and I hope that it augurs well for the remainder of the season. We can kick on from this point on.
Yeah, there's plenty to get into with Craig and Gordon, but let's start with last night's Festival of Football. So, as Craig, as you rightly alluded to, that Brad Spencer goal, an absolute sickener, not the kind of goal you want to concede in the 90-whatever minute of extra time. As a Stenny fan, no one can ever accuse you of being a glory hunter until the past couple of years when you seem to be flying. They put up a decent show. Do you think, because watching the game, it felt like Stenny just tried to nullify Falkirk at points and try to grab something. Do you think they put up a decent show, or do you think they could have done a little bit better attacking wise? What was your gut telling you?
No, I think the first instance there, Ray, I think that, as I said earlier, Stenhousemuir were very structured, very disciplined. I think that every man there, all the outfield players, all the substitutes, all did really, really well. They did a lot of ground to cover. They were always concentrating on what they had to do. No one really switched off, and they really made Falkirk try to shuffle the ball out wide and then put balls into the penalty box. And then guys like Nicky Jamieson, Gregor Buchanan, Archie Graham, all very strong penalty box defenders. And for the longest time, it actually kept Falkirk at bay. I think the issue for Stenhousemuir was they were trying to win free kicks and set pieces further up the park. I think that's a particular weakness of Falkirk. So one of their very few weaknesses this season is they're not that adept at defending corners and free kicks. So I think what we were looking to do was try to get into the final third, maybe buy a foul, and then be able to flood the penalty box. But it didn't happen often enough. Falkirk were very good at defending against Matty Aitken, and the few set pieces that Stenhousemuir did have just weren't quite good enough. So from an attacking sense, we didn't really do much, but I appreciate why that was the case. One of the players missing was Ross Taylor, who is having an absolute phenomenal season. He's a real game changer, very fast, unpredictable. And if we had the opportunity to maybe unleash him with 20 minutes to go, it might have been different. But given the tools that Stenhousemuir had, I was very, very pleased with what I saw overall.
Yeah, and for you, Gordy, Falkirk, are you satisfied with the performance? Because obviously, taken to extra time by a League One team, the derby element added into it. happy just to get through, you said earlier, but what's the overall look at that?
Yeah, I also think that John McGlynn obviously took the opportunity to rest, about 3 or 4 players as well, which I was slightly surprised at. But, and especially given the nature of the game, I thought he might have stuck with Barney Stewart up top from the start, just with his added kind of pace and enthusiasm to
What a story
have,
Barney Stewart is, isn't it?
Oh, listen, terrific, and again, I mean, like we've talked about Brad Spencer's goal, but you look at Stewart's header for the second goal last night, and just the way that he attacked the ball, and there's a confidence there that wasn't in him 6 months ago. I think his trip to Dunfermline has done him the world of good. It's funny, there was a rump of our fans that were like, "Oh, whatever we do, we shouldn't send him there. Don't send him to the Fifers." And working with Neil Lennon has clearly turned him from a boy into a man as far as a football player goes. He's worlds apart from where he was in terms of his hold-up play and in terms of his positioning, and everything else about his game just looks on a different plane from where it was, at the tail end of last season. So he's been terrific. So I was slightly surprised, given that we seam of form that he's in and his enthusiasm for the game and his fitness, that we didn't play him to stretch Gregor Buchanan and Nicky Jamieson a little bit more. I think that they probably relished the battle with Brian Graham more than they would have done with Barney Stewart. And to be fair, they won that battle out of sight. The two centre halves, they were both absolutely excellent in terms of, and Craig's right. Gary Naismith and Brown Ferguson had obviously had a plan for how to make Falkirk play, and they made them play that way. And then the two boys defended the 6-yard line like they were defending their mother's honour, as they say. So it was they did. Stenny were excellent. They were exactly what I thought they were going to be, but Falkirk are just in that little kind of vein of form at the moment where you didn't actually feel like they were going to let you down last night.
Yeah, I mean, as a Thistle fan, I've never had that feeling, so that must be nice. But Craig, for you, I was watching the game last night, and I was thinking, because all three of us can relate to it as a Falkirk, Stenhousemuir, and a Party Thistle fan. It puts your players in the shop window, but we live in a world of football where the players at our club often have 1 or 2 year deals max. So the players that put in the shop window, Jameson, who's been waxed lyrical about, is he on a free transfer at the end of the season? Do you think this is the last you'll see of him after last night?
No. I think although Nicky Jamieson's contract is up, I do think he'll stick around at Stenhousemuir. I hope he'll stick around at Stenhousemuir. He missed virtually all of last season through injury. He played a handful of games in the League Cup and suffered a really serious hamstring injury. He kept him all throughout last season. He came back early on this season, suffered another setback, and we thought that might be him over and done with as a professional player. But he's worked his way back into the team. He's playing regularly, he's playing with confidence, and I think that it's obviously easy as a fan to say this, but I think he really enjoys his time playing at Stenhousemuir. I think there's a real good team spirit, a real good sense of community amongst the players there, and I actually expect a lot of the players from this season to stick around for next season. We will need them when we're in the Championship next year, so it's really important that guys like Nicky Jamieson and all that stick around. So I'm confident we'll see a lot of these players next season, despite how good some of them were last night.
That's good.
You might see neither of us in the Championship, but you'll certainly not see us in the Championship next year. The way that Thistle are going just now, it's a flip of the coin.
With touchwood. Well, let's, especially with this, the producer of this show is a St Johnstone fan, so let's hope so, because he will be livid. Let's go to the other game that happened yesterday. A very different type of game. Rangers against Queen's Park. Certainly wasn't a repeat of last year's upset, was it, Gordon? I mean, key takeaways from the game: a James Tavernier hat-trick, Ryan Aderi got his first Rangers goals, and Queen's Park can't defend crosses. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I think 7 of the 8 goals, one's a penalty of the 7, but are all related to crosses. Gordon, what do you make it? Rangers bloodied a lot of their new signings. They all seem to do well, but can you take a lot out of that game when it's so easy?
No, probably not. I don't I don't think it was exactly the ideal prep for them going to for a tough game at Fir Park on Wednesday night. I mean, in some respects it is, because I mean you never lose confidence from these things, but when it turns into a training exercise like that game turned into very early, then no matter how many goals you score in it, there's a kind of veneer of that kind of goes over it, where you think, right, well, are we learning anything from this? Are we, and other than the kind of slight element, because you could sense that by the end, even the fans were slightly kind of, all right, okay, well, let's just, this is done, let's just get this over with and get on with the business. But it is what it is. You would maybe have said that going into last year's game as well, and look what happened. But Rangers are clearly a different animal now under Danny Rule. There's going to be a little bit more edge to them. Last year, they were starting to drift, and they were a pretty sorry lot. But you didn't ever get the feeling that there was going to be a repeat of that this year.
Yeah. And for you, Telfer, on the other side, obviously, the Derrys gets first couple of goals. That's huge for Rangers. But from a Queen's Park point of view, this season is worrying for the fans, isn't it?
I went to see Queen's Park against Ross County on Tuesday night, and in the first half Queen's Park gave quite a good account of themselves, and midway through the second half Sean Crichton was making changes that I couldn't quite understand what he was doing. It certainly didn't look like from a tactical perspective that were helping Queen's Park, and I wondered if he maybe had one eye on the game against Rangers, like he maybe wanted to protect some players for it. And I found that really strange, given the fact that Ross County are your nearest rivals for relegation. You should be looking to immediately beat them and then see what happens against Rangers. As Gordon said, it's very, very unlikely that Lightning's going to strike twice then. So they take an 8-0 shellacking. They've got to play Ross County again this weekend, which is another massive match at the bottom of the table. And I just worry if this game will have done something to their confidence. It looked by the end, they were completely shell-shocked, particularly in that second half performance. Some of the goals they were giving away, just an inability to defend the 6-yard box, an inability to show any aggression or competitiveness when you're coming up against your opposition. And I know that Rangers are several tiers above them at the moment in terms of quality, but even so, just try and put the big striker off. Stop the cross from coming in. Just try to do something. They didn't really do that, and I think it was a very chastening afternoon for the clubs. And I think that Sean Crichton's it's a big week for them in terms of getting the preparation right and putting that game in the bin, to an expression that Crichton's used in the past. Put that game in the bin and look forward to going up to Dingwall, because this is a huge game. This could be a season definer for Queen's Park on Saturday.
Callum Ferry would have felt 10 feet tall last year when he walked out of Ibrox, having saved the penalty and that put them through. But yesterday he'll have walked out, and there'll be an element of PTSD and there, and doubt in his head. As Craig rightly points out, the next time a cross ball comes over, or the first time a cross ball comes over, when Jordan White's coming in to go at him next week, then he's going to be thinking twice about it.
Yeah, sorry, Ray. Just like Ferry, after that penalty save, his form at Queen's Park actually took quite a big dip. He was a really imperious goalkeeper in the build up to that, but then his performances over the latter part of that season were quite below par, and I don't think he's ever really recovered and got back to the same level. And I think it was the third goal, the corner that just went right over the top of his head and into the net. I think that was sort of like endemic of his loss of form over the past 12 months.
Yeah, if you get a chance, Stephen Thompson pointed out rightfully on the radio, you can watch the Rangers players try to not give James Tavernier the match ball because they said it was a Ferry OG for that one, and they're arguing with him, which is always good for his confidence. Let's turn to Saturday's games, and there was real drama on Saturday night. Celtic toiled to get past Dundee. It was a good performance from Stephen Presley's side. They needed a very, very, very late equaliser to take it to extra time. Craig, start with you. Should there have been of that much added on time? I think Dundee were certainly not happy about it.
No, I was watching the game in the pub, and that was something that my friends and I were saying to one another, where's this extra time coming from? Where's all this additional time coming from? And I presume it was from when Kieran Tierney got poleaxed. He was down for a good whack of time.
Is that a red card for you, that tackle?
You've seen them given.
I think it was orange card. Then one of them.
Orange, yeah. I think it was pointed out. There was a game when Hearts played Celtic at Tynecastle last season. I think there was
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, there was a really a very high boot in that, so you could see that the parallels with that. But I think that from a Celtic perspective, from this, they'd have been delighted with the equaliser goal and then to subsequently go on and win the match. But I thought that it was a very flat performance. It was, rather than showing like coherent attacks and a strategy to try and beat this Dundee team, you're almost just relying on moments of magic. And I don't think the substitutes that came on were particularly good. Yeah, Junior Adamu, it's a very, very good improvised goal, but I just didn't see much from Celtic to suggest that they've overcome their slump, or the new recruits are really going to add much to them. I think that they were fortunate to have got back into this match. I think it was more to the fact that they have better players than Dundee that allowed them to do it, rather than anything like tactical or anything like particularly special in that department. So I did feel really bad for Dundee in this, because it was they put a lot into it, and similar to what we're talking about when Brad Spencer scored for Falkirk, just when Celtic equalised, you just knew that very unlikely they're going to come back and get anything.
Yeah, 100%. Gordon, for yourself, plenty. Craig talked about the atmosphere at Parkhead there. Plenty of empty seats from the boycott. Do you think that's achieving anything just now?
I think it's doing the opposite for the team, certainly, and I know that Martin O'Neill is trying to be diplomatic about it, and if there's anybody who is likely to bring them all together, then it could well be him. But having said that, the standoff seems fairly irretrievable at the moment, and that being the case, I think that the only thing that's probably going to salvage it is if and let's face it, we've all had kind of anger at boards and all that over the years, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, when they end up playing Rangers twice in a week, and when they end up playing in Europe, at some point there will be the rump of Celtic fans will be saying, I'm going. It's not about a boycott of the board. It's about actually supporting their team. And the arguments for their boycott, whilst they, in their own head, they may justify to themselves, as it stands at the moment, the team are clearly needing them. Craig's right that although Martin O'Neill's record in his two spells so far has been near impeccable with that one loss, they're still not functioning. They're not there. And they've got that. They're now with that cup draw that Lee Miller somewhat shamefacedly pulled out of the hat last night. Then I think they've got a run of 4 away games on the bounce, which are going to be. Well, I mean, in some respects they're maybe grateful for that, because the boycott won't show up quite as much. But they've got Rangers twice. They've got Europe. I know off the top of my head, I can't remember who their 4th away game is, but they've got a run of 4 away, and it's none of them are going to be easy for them. So it's going to be a crucial spell, and if they come out of that spell, in fact, Hearts at Tynecastle's the other one. What am I saying? If they come out of that spell and they're still in the race for everything, then I think you will see most fans giving it boycott, schmoycott, and they'll be there. And I think that's the way it should be at the moment. I think they're. As I say, their case against the board is maybe one thing, but boycotting your own team at the moment is I think it's a fairly redundant show for them. Oh,
sorry, I thought you were still speaking there. I genuinely thought
no, sorry,
I'll take it.
I'll try to shut myself up, because you could go on for an hour about this subject alone, and about Celtic's dysfunction at boardroom level, and about their recruitment, and about everything else. There's about 3 different podcasts in that alone. But I think what the fans are doing just now, I think that their timing's poor, and I think that their motive at the moment is spurious.
Yeah. Well, if we go to, you're talking about fans not turning out. For other fans, Scottish Cup is such a huge weekend. We'll talk about Partick Thistle in a second, taking 1,300 fans up to Elgin. Dunfermline first, Chris Kane double, put them through over Kelty. Neil Lennon, I don't know if you've seen it, has a great post-match interview with Brian McLaughlin of the BBC, where Brian tries to spin a question or just ask a kind of straight question, and Neil Lennon goes, "We're not doing that. We didn't play well the first half. We got through the second half. That's all that matters." Sometimes with that, and just shuts him down. A Chris Kane double, Craig Telfer, very important player for Dunfermline now that Barney Stewart's gone back. Could he have had a hat-trick? Do you think that was over the line?
I saw the debate in sports scene about that shot that I've very rarely that hits the underside of the bar twice, bounces down and hits the line twice before coming away. You do not see them very often. I think that I'd probably err on the side of Jonathan Sutherland when he said that the whole ball might not have crossed the line. If you imagined you had goal line technology there, and when they do the shot over the line, I think there might have been a sliver of shadow that stopped the whole ball from crossing the line. I mean, I can understand if Dunfermline had gone on to lose that match, it would certainly been a lot more contentious than it was. But thankfully, Chris Kane was able to get the 2 goals and give them a pretty straightforward win against pretty straightforward opposition. I think that it was similar to a lot of the games actually we saw, like for Partick Thistle against Elgin and St Mirren against Airdrie. I think all these teams made quite heavy work of in fact, maybe in like Falkirk, Stenhousemuir, a lot of the teams made, and Celtic Dundee, in fact, I think actually a lot of the games other than Rangers Queen's Park, the favourites made heavy weather of the smaller team. And ultimately, if Dunfermline can get to the semi-finals, can get to the final, will anyone really care that they struggled to break down Kelty Hearts? Not really. I think that for a lot of the bigger teams, Dunfermline included, it's just a case of just getting through by hook or by crook and progressing as far as you can in the competition. You're not going to get massive credit for beating Kelty Hearts like 3 or 4-0, let's be honest.
That's essentially what Mark Wilson said, because I think his quote after the game was, it was just an old-fashioned cup tie. We required Thistle. I think Ben Stanley scored the winner in the 81st, 82nd minute. St Mirren needed extra time to get past Airdrie on Friday night. They're now 5 games unbeaten. They weren't amazing on Friday night. I think, Gordon, I loathe to ask you this, but see, when you look at St Mirren against Airdrie, you see, I think it was Jamie Burjonas denied an absolute stonewall penalty.
Oh,
do you think we need VAR
in
that?
Do we need VAR in the Scottish Cup games? No.
Craig is looking at the screen. But if you're an Airdrie fan, you're livid at that, because what is, I think it was Kevin Clancy, what is he doing?
But don't be, I was going to say, don't be livid at the lack of VAR in these games. Be livid at the refereeing. Kevin Clancy was perfectly well placed to see that, in the same way that, and probably there wouldn't be a single other person watching that challenge the other night that didn't instantly think penalty kick. So what's going through Kevin Clancy's head that he kind of waves that away? That's got nothing to do with VAR and everything to do with wanting your referee just to do his job. And maybe this is one of the problems of VAR at the moment, is that the referees, there's an element where they've forgotten to make these decisions, because they think now that don't worry, well, if I make a bad decision, VAR will save me. And if I don't make any decision, VAR will save me, because they're now into the way of believing that these games are going to be re-refereed for them. And if it's not there, suddenly, they're back to being the sole arbiter of the game. And it's a responsibility for them, but they've got to take that responsibility with big decisions like that. And in a million years, that's a penalty kick all day long, it's not, that is not a case for having VAR. I mean, if you look at the game last night, and Craig would have been probably, I presume you were maybe, I don't know if you were in the main stand, Craig, but the one that Falkirk had chopped off.
And if you, very, very close.
If you drew lines, if you had VAR and you drew lines on that, then it would have been very, very tight. But at no point did I think, I wish we had VAR last night. It was just...
It's funny. Do you know what? I think in football media, I think we're all guilty of talking about VAR too much, and I try not to mention it on these podcasts or any radio I do. When I mentioned it this morning, genuinely, I saw Craig Telfer more animated than I did when Stenhousemuir won the league. That is how passionate that was. That was incredible. Finally, let's look ahead at the draw that has been thrown up by Lee Miller last night. I think it's safe to say lots of people speculating he won't get asked back to do the draw again after drawing the Old Firm together. St Mirren hosts Partick Thistle. Falkirk also at home to Dundee United or Spartans. And then we've also got a chance of a potential upset, maybe Dunfermline against Aberdeen or Motherwell. Obviously, Dundee United and Spartans and Aberdeen and Motherwell both called off due to the horrific weather over the past week. So those games are getting played next midweek. So we'll find out who's there. Craig, thoughts on the draw?
I think it's a really good draw. I'm really, really excited by it. And what I'm so excited about, as much of this is the fact that I think there's any Premiership team can win it. I genuinely think I think Falkirk could actually see themselves winning it. I think Aberdeen or Motherwell, whoever comes out of that, can see themselves winning it. I think you've got a Celtic team who we've discussed there that aren't particularly good. Rangers are getting better, but they can be got at. Falkirk, for instance, earlier in the season, would have been able to take points off Rangers. So I think this is wide open for any Premiership team to go and win it, and that's ultimately what makes it so exciting. You always want to see Rangers and Celtic drawn with each other as early as possible in the competition to knock them out. Once they're out, once it's just one of the old firm teams in there, every other team should be looking to win it. So it's a really good draw. So I know Lee Miller's getting pelters. I don't think he deserves any pelters. I think the big man deserves a lot of plaudits for how he's pulled this off.
The beauty of the draw isn't so much that any Premiership team will think they can win it, it's that every team who's left in it from outside the Premiership will also be looking at that draw thinking, by the way, that's as good a draw as we could have got. Spartans, obviously have still got Dundee United to get through, but we'll be looking and thinking we couldn't have asked for probably any better than getting Falkirk. Thistle, will be happy that they didn't draw, certainly after Mark Wilson's quotes on Saturday night saying he's bored wanting a glamour tie, but he didn't. He'd have been quite happy to avoid the Old Firm, and I think Dunfermline will look at their game as well and think, right, well, it's maybe as good as we could have got as well. So yeah, I love the draw because I think outside of Celtic and Rangers fans, everybody else who's in it will look at it and think that they've got a decent shot at getting to Hampden.
Yeah, Matt, it was funny you say that, Gordon. My mate Paul messaged me last night and said it's the first draw he can remember in ages where each team will be happy with that draw, maybe with the exception of Celtic right now, just based on that. It's funny, if you want an idea of the mindset of Partick Thistle fans, we were like, we just hope we do well. And last night when that draw was made, someone messaged me saying, let's hope we don't get Celtic in the next round because that means 2 of our players can't play because they're on loan from them. So we're in the mindset of it's 1921 again, let's win it. Well, that's all we get time for. Many thanks to Craig and Gordon, and thank you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. I think this week has just summed up the magic of the Scottish Cup. You've got 8-0 hammerings, you've got local derbies in the telly, and most importantly, you've got Partick Thistle into the quarterfinals. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the shorter obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line. Somebody's washing,
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is,
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.